Mrs. Anderson pulled up in front of her daughter's school gate. This was the same route she took to work every morning, and dropping off her eldest daughter had become a part of her routine. Just as she parked in front of the school and turned off the car ignition, she noticed a troubled look on her daughter's face and decided to ask her what was wrong. "Shola, you have been quiet all morning, and I noticed that right from home. Is everything okay with you?" Mrs. Anderson asked. "Yes, Mom. I'm fine," Shola said, forcing a smile at her mother. She reached for the door handle and was about to step out of the car when her mother held her back. "Wait first, Shola. Maybe we should pray about your worries," Mrs. Anderson said. Shola relaxed back into the car seat. It was a habit from their Christian upbringing, as Shola's father is a pastor. They prayed briefly, and Shola gave her mother a peck on her cheek before stepping out of the car. "Take care of yourself today, okay?" Mrs. Anderson said and turned on the ignition of her car. Shola nodded and waved goodbye to her mother, standing briefly to watch her drive away to work. However, her troubled expression soon returned, and with heavy steps, she walked into her school compound. On her way to her classroom, Shola spotted Senior Samuel standing with friends and chatting happily. She then approached him and asked for a moment alone. "Samuel, can I talk to you privately?" Shola asked. "Sure," Samuel replied and followed Shola to a quiet corner of the school. "I missed my period, Samuel," Shola said with her voice almost cracking. "And so what?" Samuel replied. "What's the big deal about missing your period?" "The big deal is that I am pregnant," Shola said, glancing around cautiously to ensure they were alone. "My friend, who is a nursing assistant at a chemist shop by the road, examined me. She said I am pregnant. So what do you expect me to do?" Samuel asked. "It is just an ordinary pregnancy, and I expected you to be able to handle that yourself." "You call this an ordinary pregnancy?" Shola said, almost shouting at him. But she quickly lowered her voice because she never wanted anyone to hear their conversation. "Remember, I never wanted to do this, Samuel, but you forced yourself on me," Shola complained, almost with teary eyes. "Yeah, I forced myself on you," Samuel said. "But didn't you give in to it later? We both had fun, and I am glad you enjoyed yourself." "I never enjoyed any bit of it," Shola protested. "I simply let you have your way because I love you, and you have been disturbing me too much." "Well, I never loved you in return," Samuel said. "Whatever happened between us was a game, a mere deal between me and my friends. You have been turning down every guy in this school, acting all pompous as if you are the most religious and beautiful." "Listen, Shola," Samuel continued. "The guys set you up knowing you couldn't resist a handsome guy like me. I won the 1 million Naira prize money, so get the hell out of my sight." Tears flowed freely from Shola's face as Samuel said those cruel words to her. She watched Samuel walk away and then collapsed to the floor, crying. Just then, Shola began hearing footsteps and chatter from female students approaching, so she quickly wiped her tears and composed herself as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, in Shola's classroom, a group of male students gathered around a locker, banging on it to create a beat for Israel as he sang. During Israel's freestyle performance, he spotted Shola walking into the classroom, looking distressed. So, he quickly adjusted his freestyle lyrics and approached Shola in an attempt to lift her spirits and brighten her day with his song. When Israel reached Shola's locker, he leaned toward her and began singing while the drumming boys cheered him on. Almost everyone in the classroom was enjoying Israel's freestyle and nodding their heads to the rhythm of his melodies. But Shola wasn't even paying attention to the music. Her life was already in a big mess, and she was heartbroken by Senior Samuel's words. She imagined the shock that would be on her father's face if he found out she was no longer a virgin, let alone pregnant. All this thought was going through Shola's mind, while Israel continued to disturb her with his freestyle session, refusing to let a troubled heart find rest. Suddenly, Shola grabbed Israel by his school uniform collar and pulled him closer. She then reached for her pen and was about to injure the upcoming musician when the rest of the classroom quickly intervened. "Leave me the hell alone and take your music freestyle elsewhere," Shola shouted. transferring all her aggression toward Israel, who was only trying to brighten her up. The whole classroom was shocked by this outburst. None of them had ever seen Shola in such anger before, and the room was quiet for a moment. "I am sorry to bother you, Shola," Israel apologized. "I didn't mean to annoy you with my song. But if you don't like pop music and are upset because of that, I can switch to gospel. Just leave me alone and take your music somewhere else," Shola said and sat in her seat. She buried her head in her locker, and tears continued to flow as she wept silently. Mirabel, who was also in the same class with them, suddenly burst out laughing, mocking Israel after his confrontation with Shola. "You think you'll make it big with that style of music?" Mirabel told Israel. "The only label you'll get is when you're labeled a criminal. I doubt any record label in their right mind would want to invest in you." "Shut up, Mirabel," Tun said, standing up for Israel, his best friend. He turned to Israel and continued, "Don't mind Mirabel. We know your quality, and Mirabel is just jealous. You are talented, and you will succeed musically." "Speaking of record labels," Tund continued, "YBNL could sign you one day. You are that good." "Thank you, Tund," Israel replied, turning to his best friend. "But I am not interested in YBNL though. I just want Maven Records. If they come knocking, I'll go for them." "He's even choosing labels," Mirabel said, laughing again. "You'll never make it as a musician. I have this belief that you'll end up like your older sister, who couldn't complete secondary school. You'll end up working at a food restaurant like her by the roadside." Israel was angered by Mirabel's remark about his elder sister, and he wanted to charge toward her in anger, but Tund quickly held him back and persuaded him to ignore her. "Let it go, Israel," Tund said. "You've known Mirabel for a long time, and she's just trying to provoke you. She has no right to disrespect my sister like that," Israel said, fuming. "That's absolutely uncalled for." "I know," Tund said, still trying to calm him down. "Don't engage with her. She's a lady and we're in school. If this spirals out of control and you get rusticated, your sister will be disappointed in you." Israel returned to his seat calmly, and the thought of Sarah, his eldest sister, crossed his mind. Ever since their parents' death in an accident, the family members who had vowed to support their education during the funeral service at church had stopped answering their calls. Feeding became a problem, let alone being able to afford school. For that reason, Sarah decided to withdraw from school so Israel, who is more intelligent than she is, could continue. Sarah works all day at a canteen by the roadside, earning barely enough to take care of their basic needs and ensure Israel remains in school. Now, if there's any reason Israel ever wanted to succeed musically and academically, it is because of the sacrifices Sarah made for him. Sarah is golden and more like a sister playing the role of a mother in his life. He would never sit and watch anyone make fun of her status as Mirabel did. The school bell rang, signaling the end of the day at Bright Future Academy. Shola then packed her bag and exited the classroom. When she arrived home, she headed to her room and locked the door behind her firmly. Tears began streaming down her cheeks as she picked up her phone and dialed Senior Samuel's number. "This cannot be happening to me," Shola pondered, wanting to speak to Samuel again. Maybe another conversation would make Samuel say something different, or perhaps make him claim he never meant those hurtful words he had said to her at school today. But after 3 failed attempts to reach Samuel over the phone, with each call dropping, Shola finally realized that Samuel had blocked her number. The reality hit her like a punch in the face, and the frustration drove her to throw her phone to the far end of the bed. Then, she clutched her pillow tightly, overwhelmed by her emotions. What will my father say when he finds out about the pregnancy? Shola thought deeply, and fear gripped her. I would rather end my life than face the shame and mockery from church members. She stared around her room, then into the drawer, where she found a packet of capsules that had been administered to her when she was sick a few weeks ago. Shola began to unwrap each of the capsules, one after the other, which came in different sizes and colors. She intended to take them all at once. She believes death might be the preferable option at that moment, choosing it over dishonor and embarrassment. The capsules were piled in her right hand, water in her left. Shola closed her eyes, ready to swallow all of it at once when a soft knock on the door interrupted her. "Shola, can I come in?" The voice of her mother, Pastor Mrs. Anderson, sounded from the other side of the door. Panic set in immediately, and Shola began to run around the room frantically. She opened the toilet door, washed the capsules down the drain, and then returned to her room. "Shola, are you in there?" Her mother called again, trying to open the door. She then realized it was locked from the inside. Yes, I'm coming, Mom," Shola replied, coughing to clear her hoarse voice. She opened the door, and her mother stepped into the room. "Shola, what's wrong with you?" Mrs. Anderson asked as she entered. She tossed aside the blanket on Shola's bed before sitting on the edge of it. "I'm fine, Mommy," Shola replied. "I heard your voice halfway through my sleep and quickly hurried to open the door for you." "Why are you sleeping at this hour of the day?" Shola's mom asked. "You haven't even come down to eat your food. I hope you're not planning to get sick again. It hasn't been long since we just left the hospital." "I'm fine, Mom. Just needed some rest after school," Shola reassured her. "Okay, dear. Take all the time you need," her mother said. "But first, I want to share something quickly with you." "What is it, Mom?" Shola asked, looking curious. "The Baptist Church Association community has sent the quarterly youth booklet," Mrs. Anderson began. "Please study it, since you're the church youth leader. This is what you'll be teaching the youth this coming Sunday," Shola's mom said, handing her daughter a small booklet. Shola took the book from her mother. It was titled, "Overcoming Fear, Pressure, and the Importance of Virginity in Marriage." "You see, Shola, I am very passionate about this quarter's topic," Pastor Mrs. Anderson said. "These days, many girls don't understand the significance of virginity anymore, and a lot of them are losing their way already. Even more concerning is that some have babies outside of wedlock, which is alarming. I'm glad this topic is being addressed now. These are important issues we need to discuss in the church and at home." Shola simply nodded at her mother's words, but said nothing in response. "Okay, Shola, I'll leave you to rest now," her mother said and stood up from the edge of the bed. "Make sure you study it well this weekend because that topic is vital." "All right, Mom." Shola nodded and watched her mother exit through the door. She buried her face in her pillow and began crying again. Samuel had thrown her life into a mess by impregnating her. Sarah served a customer who had come to buy rice and beans at their roadside restaurant. After serving the dishes, she took them to the customer and placed it in front of him. "Ah, Sarah, this food is too small now," Kamaru the bricklayer said. "Go and add something for me now, huh?" "Kamaru, you should be ashamed of yourself," Sarah replied. "No one comes to this restaurant to buy food without meat, except for you. Anyway, that is the amount of food your 500 naira could afford," she said and was about to walk away when Kamaru called her back. "Sarah, what about our discussion?" Kamaru said. "I love you, and I will take care of you." "You and who is trying such stupid love?" Sarah shot back at him. "There's no way I would end up with a stingy man like you, someone who can't even take care of himself properly." Sarah was ready to insult Kamaru further when her madam and the roadside restaurant owner called out to her. "You called me ma?" Sarah said, upon getting in front of the fat Anambra woman she was working for. "Yes, it's past 10 p.m. and you should start going home now," the restaurant owner said and handed Sarah her daily pay of 2,000 naira. "Thank you, ma," Sarah said gratefully. She returned to the restaurant, grabbed her bag, and began her walk home. "Welcome, big sis. You're back already?" Israel mumbled, still half asleep on his bed. "Thank you," Sarah replied. "How was school today? And I hope you're studying." "I'm studying, sis," Israel replied as he took the nylon bag of food that Sarah was pointing at him. This had become their daily routine, and Sarah would often steal different delicacies from her place of work to feed her brother at home. She dropped her belongings on the bed and headed straight to the bathroom to take a bath, while Israel was eating. A short while later, Sarah returned from her bath and began styling her hair in front of the mirror, when she noticed that something was missing from the room. "Israel, where is the necklace Mom left for me before her death?" Sarah asked and turned to look at him. Israel didn't say a word. He simply scratched his head and pretended not to hear anything as he continued eating. "Can't you hear me?" Sarah shouted at him. "Where is the necklace?" "Sarah, please give me a chance to explain," Israel said. "I needed some money, but I promise the gig is from a legitimate source. Someone offered to help me connect with a top musician in Lagos here, but they asked for a fee that I couldn't afford." "You sold Mom's necklace again, didn't you?" Sarah couldn't hide her frustration. "The only inheritance she left me, and you sold it just like that?" "Don't worry, sister," Israel tried to reassure her. "I will buy you many gold necklaces when I become a popular musician." But Sarah was beyond such groundless consolation. She collapsed to the ground with tears streaming down her face. "What more do you want, Israel?" Sarah said sadly. "I know I can't fill the void that Mom and Dad left us, but I'm trying my best to be there for you every day. I deal with the touts at work who try to talk nonsense to me. I endure their meaningless flirtation every day just to make sure you can stay in school. Is this how you're going to repay me?" Israel was emotional. He tossed his food aside and moved closer to Sarah and tried to comfort her. But Sarah pushed him away. "Don't come near me. Don't talk to me except you're going to return that chain to this house," Sarah declared.